Hey guys, welcome to this video. Thanks for tuning in and sharing in this now moment with myself and with one another. If you haven't seen these videos before, welcome. Welcome back if you have. I just want to roll right into it. The biggest subject that's been coming through for me is breathing. So simple, right? What I'm being shown is that when we interact with the breath consciously, and this isn't going to be the whole message, but I want to go into a little flow about that. It's an exchange. So I was shown that we're in this fluidity and we're breathing in air into our body through a systematic, automatic way of being. And I'm just going to go into flow. And as we stay in this systematic exchange, it's part of our human system. So we're breathing air from our environment, we're breathing out CO2, we're breathing in oxygen, and this creates an exchange. And this is how our reality, and this is not to say like the reality that we're creating with what we're seeing in the mainstream. I'm talking about our physical reality. This is part of what we do. This is part of what we've always done. And the trees, of course, help bring us oxygen, and the plants help bring us oxygen. And I've been shown multiple levels. And essentially what we're looking at is, are we doing this consciously? Many of us aren't breathing. We're in a state of heightened tension and hypertension. And what I'm hearing is retention. So then what happens is we either don't bring the breath all the way in, or we hold the breath and don't let it all the way out. And in both of these are working, making the body work overtime. I'm just staying in flow. And as we create this hypertension within our body, or this tension with the element of air that is naturally abundant, we create this lack of abundance within our lung capacity, within our cellular network, within our brain. And essentially it shrinks us. This is what I'm being shown. It shrinks us down to size. It brings us into a smaller version of us. And so while we are on autopilot, our body is forced to also be on autopilot, because that's what we are unconsciously doing. So while many of us are on autopilot in general about things that are going on, we're also on autopilot physically. And maybe we're well aware, maybe we're very aware of what's going on out there in the world. But until we become and create more aware of what's going on in our bodies and create this relationship, the harder our bodies have to work as we go through this next level of expansion. And this next level of expansion requires us to breathe. For our nutrients are connected directly to our source truth energy. Our nutrients are connected directly to the air that we are bringing into our bodies and then feeding our lungs, our cells, our blood, okay, our brain. And if we are creating a barrier against this for whatever reason, and I know what part of the reason this is coming up is because many of us are being required to wear our beautiful face coverings, right? Many of us are being required to stay indoors. Many of us, so I'm being guided to just touch briefly on that. It is so important if that is a requirement. What's happened is this has now become a habitual pattern for many, wearing the face covering. And then what happens is we're not making up for it. So that means the oxygen levels have gone down. The capacity to take the breath in has decreased. The feeling of, and so this directly connects into hypertension, fight or flight response, lack of concentration, feeling tired, okay? And domino effect. So what happens is we are being asked by our higher selves, from what I'm being guided to share, to give ourselves what we need. And it's as simple as breathing right now. So as I say this, I hear questions. And one of the questions or comments that people will mention is, well, what about what's going on in the air? all of that stuff, those particles that are not necessarily natural. I'm just going to go there. Why not? At this point, right? In my own way. Okay, that's fine. Go inside when that's going on and buy some extra plants. Put plants all over your house so that you can then bring that relationship in. And so it's basically we're being asked to figure it out. Okay? We're being asked to step it up. So if we're not getting enough oxygen, what do we need to do to get enough oxygen? And I'm hearing not make excuses. Oh, wow. Okay. It's one of those days. So what I'm hearing is there's a lot of this fear mongering that's still going on. And many of us are aware of what's going on in the air. Many of us are aware of what the face coverings do for our bodies or don't do, more importantly. Many of us are aware, but pushing all that aside for just a moment, what can we do about it? You know, there may be someone who works somewhere and that is what their choice is because they have or that's the choice they have to make, or the rule that they have to follow because they have children they have to feed, and that's just where they're at right now. Then what happens is when we get home, sit outside for 15 minutes and do conscious breathing. So what being shown is this, and I'm going to go into a little flow about this relationship with the elements. When we consciously recognize that we are breathing in oxygen, okay? And this oxygen is oxygenating our ability for regenerating, is what I'm being told. It helps us to heal at a faster rate, which we know. It helps us to bring into our bodies the element that was purely designed to feed us. So we have this lost connection to the elements right now, and this is coming up time and time again. The air, the water, right? Fire's another story right now, but bottom line is air and water are really just important for our bodies, of course. And if I were to say earth, of course, grounding, also eating the appropriate nutrients. But I'm going to focus just on air because what my guides keep telling me is the breath, the breath, the breath. It's not like we have to go and do a breath or Lamaze class, although that could be really helpful to get guided on breath work. Just conscious breathing. We are on autopilot, and what happens is this creates this shallow breathing in addition to what I mentioned before. We have a lot of things going on in the air around us that are decreasing the oxygen levels. So we have to do what we have to do in order to increase our oxygen levels. And that may mean getting creative. I'm being shown oxygen bars. There are oxygen bars. You could check out an oxygen bar at your local health food store, find out where there is one. Maybe start your own oxygen bar, right? That could be fun. But natural ways of doing things. You know, people are going out and planting more trees. I have plants all over my house. Get to the ocean, get to a lake, get to a river where the water or the air has more ions in it. And that helps us to oxygenate the body better. Do that as frequently as we are able to. If you're working all week and you can't get there, maybe make the choice, instead of going to a bar or going to a restaurant, going outside and spending extra time in conscious breathing to help balance out the whole week of not consciously breathing. Taking more breaks and going outside, especially while wearing face coverings, are really important right now to support the body and the changes that we are experiencing. For as we consciously recognize that we are bringing an element into our body, we are also then creating a relationship with that element as we exhale. This symbiotic relationship allows us to symbolically let go of certain components that we are holding within our matrix of our body as well as our energy complexes. As we allow ourselves to consciously intake the nutrient or the element of air and all that it includes for our living capacity, so I'm seeing an expanded capacity for living, we then activate within us other potentials that, if left unchecked, is what I'm hearing, have a difficult time activating. So what that I'm being shown is, it's like a pinball machine. If you don't hit the pinball machine, the pinball high enough, it comes back, it doesn't get to where it needs to go. So what I'm being shown is there's a lot of things that are happening in the body that are ready, that are here now, but we are not allowing them, our own expansiveness in our lungs, in our ribs, in our brain, in our blood, to carry those nutrients where they need to go in order to fully, I'm hearing, realize, fully come into self-realization and to clear out distortion. So this is energetic. It means, just like when we breathe out stuff that we're holding on to, if we're angry. So we'll start with the energetic. If we're angry and we, instead of reacting, because our body is in this constant fight or flight. So we're right now, because of everything that's going on in the world, many of us are already in a heightened state of fight or flight and don't really realize it. Some people, because they're on autopilot. Other people, and what I'm being guided to share is, some people that are on autopilot are just exhausted. They're wearing a face covering all day. They're stressed. Maybe they're not, but they're just so focused on survival that they're just too tired to do any of this, or they think they are, because they're not consciously stopping and I'm hearing we need to overcompensate right now in this particular case. So when we take that deep breath in, it slows time down, number one, from one perspective. It gives us the opportunity to pause and then let go before we react, rather than what I was shown is we're in resistance. We're not allowing the breath to come in all the way, and we're not letting go of it all the way. That's so symbolic. We're in defense and we're not in resistance, many of us, and we're not able to just let it all go. We're holding on. And what happens is when we're in this space, oftentimes it's like watching a scary movie. When you watch a scary movie, when I watch a scary movie, I hold my breath a lot in anticipation of something fearful, right? And then what happens when everything's okay? That's what's going on. We are being bombarded with scary movie, not the funny one. Take my strong. Anyways, we're being bombarded with a lot of that. And so energetically, emotionally, our body's in that fight or flight. But what is that? What is that? It's physical also. So it's not just emotional. Everything is connected. So as we recognize with intention that we're breathing this beautiful element that we all have access to, and let me just remind everybody from what I'm being shown on the grand scheme of things, the grand schematic, the grand scale, we are all part of this. So when we hear we are all in this together, we're breathing the same air as our neighbor. We're exhaling and we're breathing it in. While some people may be in fear over that, we've been doing it since the dawn of humanity. And while the chemicals may not have been so prevalent, the stress may have been different back then, I'm just in flow. That is irrelevant. It still remains a fact. So, how do we go about our daily lives interacting in this soup of energy? Do we stay on autopilot, or do we recognize that we are the pilots that are flying in this medium of air, ether, elements, plasma? And as we start to recognize the beautiful resource that many people are ignoring, the necessity of it for our life, our expression, our expansion, the more we begin to appreciate what we are giving back, how we are exchanging in this soup. So what is it that we are doing in order to compensate for the lack of the incoming oxygen, air? And what are we doing for ourselves so that as we breathe out this energy and interact with this, I'm hearing fluid-like element, even though it doesn't seem fluid, that's what it is from one perspective. We recognize that it's creating our ability for bigger expansion. So I keep hearing that we've been shrunk. Our brains shrink. Our blood doesn't work as well. Our lungs don't hold the capacity. And as we continue to do this, it shuts down our ability to resource, recycle, and resource that which it is that Source is providing. So that puts us, again, it decreases, what I'm hearing is it diminishes our flow, and it diminishes our ability to see. It diminishes our ability to see and expand. It diminishes our expanse ability. And then this is all connected. Again, plants, plant more trees, go to an oxygen bar. Take the necessary steps, because we are going through such a huge transition, and we have this, we just have to do what we need to do in order to balance that out. Take more breaks, go outside, take a breath. What's happening is we're becoming used to not oxygenating our system. And then we go into this space of complacency, because it's a form of, I'm hearing the complications that are all around us are creating complacency, because it decreases our rate of expectancy. So it's decreasing our life flow is essentially what's going on. And the more conscious and aware we become of how we interact with our bodies and one another, of course, but also the elements, the more we have the ability to expand. So that's the simple view. I'm going to go into a little bit more flow. So this air and this beautiful expression that is flowing in and out of us, that we are all connected to, that is necessary for our life on this planet, is being taken advantage of. Yet we are not taking advantage of the advance that it is offering as we consciously bring it into our skin suit, as we consciously interact with it. So we are inviting you to recognize that as you breathe in space, fluidity, life, and other energies that are associated with us, it allows you to actually process, digest, and increase your own fluidity and mobility. So I'm seeing there's a lot of fear about breathing in toxins and breathing in dis-ease. But guys, it's directly, the less we breathe in, the more likely we are to keep a toxic environment, and the more likely we are to create dis-ease in our body. So what we're afraid of is actually is also our cure from one perspective. So again, fear will only get us so far. So we can take the necessary precautions that we believe in, but we have to counter those precautions and not get sucked into this habitual pattern that is actually creating a residual and long-term side effect. And what I hear is sidetrack. It takes us off our track, off of our path, because we don't have the energy to stay focused, to do more things, to look into the things that make us happy. Because again, we get stuck in this pattern and it's all we can do to stay, right? I mean, how many of us have experienced that? I have. It's like you get so tired and so worn down that you just don't do anything. You just want to veg and watch, television for a few hours. And then that creates, it just adds to it. And then before we know it, it becomes, again, autopilot. And I'm being shown the pilots. It's like when we fly an airplane, we're flying it through the air. It's without the air, we wouldn't have the medium in which to operate. So some people are afraid of this medium, but this is part of our reality. So we can't be in fear of it. That heightens our cortisol, fight or flight. So let's do what we can to balance what we've taken away. So we're taking that away from our experience. We're taking that away from our bodies. And our body is like, hey, I can't function without it. I'm at 95% when I should be at 99%, whatever it might be. You can get one of those finger oxygenators also. Go home, surround yourself with plants, and do some conscious breathing. Also recognizing that we are living entities and the air is a living entity. It is an element that is very much alive. Without air and oxygen, I'm seeing CO2. Like I'm seeing C, the oxygen. For it amplifies your ability to see. It amplifies your ability to heal. It amplifies your ability to be present. For as you allow your presence to interact consciously with all that is present in your field, you naturally combust through these ideas and concepts, or I'm seeing false screens. So, all right, I'm being guided to talk about this and I'm getting a little emotional. Chemicals that are part of our breathing. If you live in the city, or let's say there's things that are going on in the sky that produce these. If your body is functioning at its optimal energetic vibration, this means thoughts, being in your heart, means breathing, it means taking care, drinking enough water. All that stuff is integrated, absorbed, and moved through the system. So what I've been shown is if we're low, when we know this, and we're exposed to these things, yes, it can be detrimental to our well-being. But if we are at our peak condition and we're not just being conditioned, we see through this and we condition ourselves to be in this higher vibratory expression, which includes conscious interaction with our environment, then all that other crap and distortions in the field do not have the same effect on us. So the more we're afraid of them, the worse it is. The less we recognize and be present, the worse it is. Or can be, I should say. Doesn't always mean it's worse. Some people just miraculously are fine all the time that are on autopilot, but that's their choice or agreement that they made, I guess, when they came here. But many of us are very sensitive. So we have to balance that out. For the elements are screaming at us right now to recognize them, for they are part of us. And we have been in such a state of disconnect for so long that now is the time to reconnect so that we may say so long to the old disconnect. so that we may recondition ourselves to stay in this higher state of condition and stop conning ourselves out of conditional amplifications, agreements, and projections. For that which is being piped in to our reality, so to speak, holds many conditions with it. We are beyond that which is being piped at us. For our pipes, I'm seeing the organs and organ pipes. I'm seeing vocal pipes. I'm seeing lungs are ready to soar. We are letting go of that which is, I'm seeing, energies are so big right now. Whew, let me get back into. We are letting go of this, I'm hearing monstrosity that took on its own form from one perspective. Let us let go of the misinformation, for there is much that we are being misinformed about. Let us recognize that we must tune back into our own form, in form, and connect with this elemental. I'm hearing, let's let go of the degrees of separation. Oh, I'm having a synchronicity right now with another teacher. Allow ourselves to recognize that we are not separate. We are truly part of an elemental network of design, of elemental network of grand design. And as we upgrade our schematics, we step out of the old schemes. We step out of the old color scheme from one perspective. So I'm seeing like an app. Do you guys ever have like a free app on your phone and you have to do pictures and you have all these colors, but in order to get the really cool colors, you have to upgrade. I'm seeing we're in whatever that is. Many of us are there when we could be in, I'm hearing megawatt colors. I'm hearing vivid. Like, let's increase, it's here, but the old schematic is still creating schemes. It's still scheming. How can we keep them here when they really are vivid? And so we are recognizing that as we expand in our expression, we must express, like I'm seeing breathe out. And then breathe back in with the freedom of knowing that within us is a deeper resilience and a deeper ability to, I'm seeing, transduce, transmute, and clear out all of this dis-ease. That is malady, that's big playing words, fear, disillusion, and I'm going to do this in part 2. I'll go into another flow because I'm running out of room, but I'm hearing in order to get rid of the malady, we have to change the melody, which is the hue, which is the tune, which is our ability to fine tune our instruments, which is our ability to let go. All this other crap that's out there that's being pumped in, we have everything we need through herbs, through breath work, through plant medicine, through natural foods, through grounding and being barefoot on the earth, through swimming in ionized air and water. And we have everything that we need at our disposal to step out of this old schematic, this old scheme to keep us locked in fear. So I'm going to end on that note just because I'm almost out of time, and I'll just continue this on a part 2. So in love and light, guys, thank you so much. Again, it's just conscious breathing. So one of the things I like to say as a mantra is, as I breathe in, I expand. As I breathe out, I let go in expansion. As I breathe in, I calm my mind. As I breathe out, I release and let go. As I breathe in love. As I breathe out, I let go of fear. Whatever works for you, I play with that because then I will even play with the elements. I am now breathing in air. I am in the elements connected to aether, water, earth. As I connect with all of these elements outside of me, inside of me, I bring myself inside out. I breathe all that I am in gratitude and appreciation, in unification, in oneness. And so it is. So just play with that, whatever works for you. In love and light, guys. Namaste.